Okay, so we are ready for this second panel discussion. Hello everyone, and good afternoon. My name is Dag Messelt, and I work for BNP Paribas Asset Management in the Nordics as an investment specialist, where among other responsibilities is also coordinating our sustainable and responsible investing, and also do ESG research on issues. So the green transition of the maritime sector is very important for us. First of all, before introducing you to the panel, let me just introduce a little bit the subject. So what is the status on financing of the green transition in the maritime sector today? I think it's important that we don't forget when we discuss about all these initiatives that after all maritime transport is an environmentally preferred transportation method in the EU. So shipping and even more sustainable or environmentally sustainable shipping should have a very bright future. Also, when we look at what companies are doing today, we have different types of initiatives within transition. One is the have to do, which is really about what is required by regulation, maritime organization rules, Paris-driven national incentives, and so on. And then we have the good to do, the additional ones, which comes out of public pressure, client pressure, and also from investor pressure. Financing the green transition of companies is actually different to what was discussed earlier, which is the financing of innovation. As the innovation to a large extent on the typically equipment supplier side, to make it a little bit simple, although often in cooperation with some clients, and the green transition is on the equipment client side. And the financing situation is also different. As we have seen in the earlier debate and earlier today as well, there's a lot of things going on with regards to financing programs on green innovation and technology. Per today, the green transition of the maritime industry is mostly through general company financing and some targeted green project financing. And I'd say that there are two main actors in addition to equity investors. And the first group is made out of the banks that in general will have, in a large perspective, focus on the bigger companies, which is important because big companies can have a big green impact, but it can take a longer time to turn around. In the banking finance part of the transition, many assets in the companies are already pledged, so put up as security. Risks for the banks is increasing quickly if they add on financing on projects where they do not have assets as guarantees. So from a bank's perspective, there's often a consideration of higher risks, and the question pops up very early, who should pay for it? State guarantees here and other type of guarantees can help, but for some companies, the banks are not always open for business. But then we have a second actor, a marketplace, which is of course the bond market. And here some very interesting things are going on as bond investors integrate more and more sustainability risks, is also called ESG risks. And they also look at opportunities, of course, within sustainability. And this is integrated in investment processes. And the bond investor will, as a group, be more and more interested in maritime companies taking part of the green transition, and of course in green maritime bonds. Some investment strategy may actually only invest in green bonds, and these are growing globally today. A lot of this happening on the bond investor side is partly driven by client pressure because the capital owners often want to be strong on sustainability and particularly in the green side. And of course by regulation that also regulates some of the asset owners on the green side. If you look at the Nordics, most shipping bonds are high yield bonds. So that's equivalent to credit rating like BB plus and lower. And the types of green transition financing we see are either two typical cases here. Normal bonds for greener companies, so companies that in general are in the process of becoming much greener on a large scale. So typically we can see bigger interest in these kind of company financings in the markets. So and a tad lower spreads maybe. And then the question is, of course, is this bond financing actually being driven in the direction of the greenest company away from the least green? And we also have pure green bonds that can be for absolutely non-green companies as such, but that is for a particular project going greener. And here we can also see that there is big interest and sometimes a tad lower spreads, so a lower cost of financing. It's an interesting way to go, as capital intensive ships, for instance, have a long life cycle and cannot be changed quickly with new builds. So it has to be for some of this company going step by step. But what we see is that there is an increasing interest of financing towards the more interesting greener maritime projects. But this is still a small part of the large market. For instance, if you look at the Nordic hire market, I think is very much the case also in Europe. And then there is a third way that financing comes in on the green transition. And this is actually a question we have to ask the clients of the maritime sector. Will those buying, for instance, maritime transport, prefer green solutions and be ready to pay more for it to show they're green? For instance, this can be for boat transport of any kind, people transport like ferries and cruise lines. And also, will companies with a stronger transition story also generate in longer term higher cash flow and finance their continued green transition that way? Anyway, I just wanted to set the context a little bit from the market side and financing bank bond investor side. And I think this context, of course, we should have a look at the next step. How to make financing of the maritime green transition accelerate, because we all see it has to. In today's panel, we're lucky to have the following participants. From GIEK, we have Solveig Frøland, who is a director of shipping, yards and offshore projects. From Klaveness Combination Carriers, we have Engelbert Dam, who is the CEO, Chief Executive Officer. And from Ponant, we have Nicolas Dubreuil, who is a polar and tropical expedition expert and director of sustainability. So maybe if we can have all the panelists connected here on the screen. We can start off with Solveig. If you could just give us a quick description of your activity and how you help financing. And are there any green initiatives that you see out there and that you see is actually helping helping companies to have help from your side, most likely then when they buy equipment exported from Norway, and vice versa? Can you also see how this guarantees is helping actually to push green initiatives?
GIEK, the Norwegian Export Credit Guarantee Agency, we offer AAA cover of credit risk in form of state guarantees for loans that may be issued by Export Credit Norway, by commercial banks or insurance companies. About 10% of total risk is to short-term credit, such as performance bonds, refund guarantees, but 90% is actually long-term credit to buyers of Norwegian export contracts. Can be ships built in Norway or other floating assets delivered from foreign shipyards with Norwegian maritime equipment installed. Unfortunately, the offshore sector still counts for more than 50% of the 10 billion euro portfolio, but we see a promising demand for financing of large offshore wind projects, zero-emission ferries using batteries produced in Norway, and for retrofit of second-hand ships. The latter includes financing of scrubbers, of which we have financed more than 100 units. GIEK shall also seek to expand the opportunity space for Norwegian exports and contribute to positive green transition. We do our best to promote green projects by using the space available within the regulations for renewable and SDG or ESG positive cases. This is achieved by, among other things, implementing an SDG sustainability assessment tool, and guidelines have been developed for the use of this tool in relation to credit assessments. To date, GIEK already operates with a certain goodwill and increased flexibility when it comes to projects considered green. For renewable energy projects such as solar power plants and offshore wind projects, this flexibility is formalized by the OECD Climate Change Sector Understanding. Under this regulation, GIEK can offer repayment profile of 18 years. For SDG positive projects in other sectors, a more informal approach applies, such as accepting a reduced minimum threshold for Norwegian content required in export contracts financed by GIEK. That means that we can offer a more generous financing in terms of amounts compared to what is actually exported from Norway. So I think that sums up that there is absolutely a will to contribute to a green transition, but of course it must be within our normal regulations.
Thank you, Solveig. Should we jump over to you, Engebret?
Yes, I don't know if I have some slides I can add on, but if not, I will just go quickly through. I think we are a quite unique shipping company in the sense that we have special type of solutions that are made by us by proprietary design of combination carriers, which are ships that can transport both wet and dry cargoes. So if you just roll on the presentation. So these ships are, we have two types of ships. We have something called the CABU ships, which are transporting, servicing the alumina industry in Brazil and Australia. So if you just continue to roll the presentation, please. And we have the CLEANBU ships that have a more versatile market and more customers and more areas of servicing. So if you please roll on the presentation. I think the key with our solutions is that they are far more energy efficient than standard ships. We have approximately, we are competing against standard tankers and dry bulk ships and are 35 to 45% more energy efficient, and hence 35 to 45% lower carbon footprint than standard shipping. We have seen a big change in the latest years when it comes to the tension from customers to do something with the carbon emissions from the supply chains. We have, based on that, we are confident that going forward it will be an important success criteria for shipping to provide the lowest carbon emission footprint transportation solution to our customers, and we have set the target to be a leader in that area. When it comes to our finance, we believe we have got a lot of help from having a unique solution and having the focus on improving further the environmental and carbon footprint of our shipping solutions. We issued early this year a senior unsecured bond, which was a standard bond, but we included some information undertakings for when it comes to sustainability reporting, and also an auditing, external auditing of our environmental KPIs. So it was quite successful, and we got in quite a number of investors with a high ESG focus in that bond. We also see that we get help from our profile in our dealings with the bankers, where we have managed to increase the bank consortium over the latest years, despite a quite tight bank market. We also this year did the first sustainability-linked bank finance, where the loan margins are linked to the fulfillment of our decarbonization targets. So I think, I think going into the green funds, there are a number of issues that we may discuss later on, but of course one is which type of propulsion fuels and solutions should be included in green finance, and we see that there's a certain orthodoxy in the green finance community will be included. In our mind, there should be a focus on goal-based solutions. What brings down the emissions, the carbon emissions per ton transported? And our solutions can, to a large extent, match many of the solutions we see in the market today. In the discussions with the green finance people, is this considered to be green? Likewise, we see which type of shipping, which type of cargoes should be included in and be qualified for green finance. Typically, you have the span from transportation of fossil fuels like crude oil or products in one end of the scale. In the mid scale, you have typically CO2 intensive industries like aluminium, steel. Should they be included in green finance? And then, of course, at the end, you have low CO2 emission cargoes and shipping like grains and so on. Our solution is that we try to have a diversified cargo base, and typically this year we have shipped around 19% of our total cargoes has been fossil fuel. The rest has been to the aluminium industry, grains, and also when it comes to steel industry. So I think that summarizes again a number of important questions to how the green finance should be targeted and how it should work. But I think it's very important to have a practical approach to it in order to make real effects.
Okay, thank you, Engebret.
That summarizes my part.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much.
I had some technical problems there, so...
Yeah, we could hear you well, Engebret, so thank you very much. Nicolas, welcome. I see that you managed to connect. That's very good. Could you also just give us a quick description of your activity and how some kind of your finance today, and also some green initiatives, whether they help financing and vice versa?
Yes, hello, nice to be here. I'm sorry because yes, I'm coming from a very old country, so internet is not very good, and I have lots of trouble of connection. But just to give you a small information about us, we are Ponant, we are an expedition cruise company. We have now 13 ships all around the world, and we are doing expedition cruise. That I mean, of course, in Norway, you know them very well, but with the Hurtigruten, the famous one who do lots of expedition cruise in all the Earth. And I'm not the finance part of Ponant, and you will see, you will understand that. But I'm here, I mean, just to give you a strong testimony about how it is important for us to be really sustainable. I mean that obviously the first financiers of our company are our customers, our passengers, and they are very, very sensitive on sustainability. I mean, it's not anymore a question. I mean, you want to do expedition cruise, you want to do cruise. It's not a question that have you to choose carefully your oil or not. I mean, it's not anymore a question. And we have seen this change in, let's say, 5 years, very strongly in 5 years, everything changed. And suddenly all our passengers look carefully. And that was for me something strange. I mean, to have, for the beginning, our first passenger coming and asking me what kind of fuel we are using. I mean, they are not used to do that. And it's not a question that we have very often, but now it's really a good question. And that push us to do that before we expect to do, but we ban absolutely all the heavy fuel oil in all places where we go. So, and that's something I just want to emphasize the fact, because the people, they are very bad, let's say, feeling with the tourism, the cruise tourism industry. And the fact is that the cruise industry changed completely. I mean, everyone changed. And because our first people who are observer of us, they are our passenger, and they watch carefully what we do, how we do it, and they change their mind. I mean, they won't take a trip if this is not carefully, if they haven't carefully checked that this trip is sustainable. I mean, the CO2 compensation is not anymore a question. Okay, you have to do that, and we are, I mean, in front line of this. And also something very important is that to finance our ships, I mean, sometimes our bank partner, they are also our passenger. So that, of course, to be really sustainable and to take care of how you manage all your cruise, and also the finance is also a question that they ask for.
Okay, well, thank you very much, Nicolas. We'll kick off here after these introductory comments, the panel discussion with some initial questions. And please also, for all of you watching on YouTube, put in your questions, and we will try to integrate those in the discussions. So I'll just like to kick off with how to say the big question then, as discussed, how to make financing of the green transition of the marine accelerate, and then maybe some sub question: is it the regulatory minimum or the voluntary additional initiatives that are seen both from a more public side and a private side? Anyone that would like to start?
Yes, I can kick off if you want to hear GIEC's view on this. I would say it's mixed. The investor space for green investments is increasing, and this allows for financing of new projects. But the regulatory moves have strong impact on the development. It is sufficient to mention the high level of investments in scrubbers. No doubt the IMO 2020 requirement have efficiently reduced sulfur emissions from ships. Government-backed financing is a factor for speeding up transition to green shipping and to allow for development of carbon-free fossils, But the shipping sector is dominantly financed by commercial banks and bonds, as was mentioned here, and there is a large increasing market of private funding. That sums up.
Yep.
I
Engelbert, we
think
can't hear you.
when it comes to minimum requirements, we know that IMO, likely in 2023, will implement new minimum requirements to shipping. But where we see quite an interesting development is that big customers, like in the tanker and dry bulk space, are promoting stricter regulations and also are starting to report on the emissions from their supply chains, and we believe we'll more and more focus to do something with it. So I think these voluntary initiatives will be in front of the regulations, and hence, in my mind, I think that will lead also the financing.
Nicolas, you mentioned that your clients are scrutinizing you on the sustainability side, right? Do you also think this is then that it's a core part of your business, and hence we can think that financing will also be a result of this?
Yeah, I think, first of all, I think we are not very good. I don't know if it's a French speciality, but we are not very good on financing. And to be really honest, I investigate on Ponant, and we don't have now, a very specific financing with sustainability. But the thing is that we are not aware, for example, of where we can find some finance in European or stuff like this. But the thing is very important for us is that clients, and sometimes it's like we do own versions. There's lots of people. Or maybe you're going too close to the whales. You must take care and so on. I mean, some NGO would say that to us, but I mean, the answer is that we have on board our ships, in each of our ships, we have 200 passengers, and this is 200 observers, and they are looking at us. If we have a bad approach of the whales, I mean, they will immediately go to the bridge and talk to the captains and to the expedition leader and ask why we are doing that. So we need to have good behavior, but we are watched by our passenger. And I think that also that sustainability for us is like it's bread and butter. It's how we earn our money. So we are pushed by the passenger, even if we go, even further than all the regulations. And for example, just I give this example of the heavy fuel oil that we ban heavy fuel. It wasn't mandatory at this time, but we decided to do that 1 year before. It was mandatory, but it was very strong on our passenger. It was a very big decision. I mean, it's lots of money, but regarding the impact on our passenger, it was so important to do that.
Thank you. Solveig, if I recall right, I think that Ponant have some vessels under construction in Norway where you are involved, and I presume there is quite a big sustainable part in the construction of these ships, right?
Yes, it is, and but we are. I don't think we shall discuss the specific ships here. So if Ponant can comment on their own fleet, that will be fine. But we are sort of restricted from revealing details on our clients.
Okay. Okay, please erase the last 15 seconds of the video. Anyway, let's kick on there. We have questions here from some of the listeners. So this is mainly to the ship owners, so I presume that given the panel here, it's mainly for you, Ingebrett. How do ship owners make decisions on which technologies to focus on for new ships? Hydrogen, LNG, electric, etc. Any thoughts about that?
I think it's a lot of things are not yet ready. That means that there are quite a number of uncertainties which type of zero emission solution will be the dominant ahead in time. So I think for us at least we are looking into how can we create as much flexibility we can with respect to meeting the future solutions into the existing ships, because we, from the studies we have made, we typically would think that ammonia could be the most prominent solution ahead in time. There are no production of green ammonia yet. There are no distribution system for green ammonia yet started to build. So I think you probably have to look ahead 10 years at least before this is ready. So I think it's difficult to make to build something today or to make an investment decision today for something which is so far ahead in time. So I think the matter is trying to build flexibility into your solutions today. I think that's at least the way we are thinking.
All right. Well, thank you. Nikolai, do you have any thoughts around that, or?
Yeah. That's very interesting because often we got this question from the passenger: why you don't use hydrogen, for example? Why you don't use why don't you sail to do your cruise? Each time we have answer. Of course, if you use sail, it will be very difficult to be on time and to do exactly where you want. And hydrogen, it's not an easy solution. Even us, and we with our last we decided to do it on LNG. And honestly, because we are only between us, it's a nightmare for us. I mean, it's a nightmare because there is not gas everywhere, so we have to manage to think about. And often we answer to technology by another technology. And the thing is that we have to change our practice. And in our industry, this is the most important things that we have to do now. Is that, of course, and as you say, it was very interesting what you said. You say that not now. I mean, it's not for now. Maybe in some years, but before that, we have to change our practice. We have to change our behavior. We have to change how we do we design the cruise to not go too far, to reduce the speed, and so on. So we have to adapt ourselves. And before always talking about technology.
Okay, well, thank you. Another question here. Is it the financing or the technology that will be the potential hurdle for making the green transformation of the marine sector? To what extent are companies pressing on in a sustainable direction for other reasons, despite financing and technical hurdles? Who would like to answer that for a beginning?
I think I mentioned regarding the technical solutions. They are. I think many of the solutions are likely to be ready over the next years, but I think people underestimate what it takes to start to use them, because without any fuel distribution, you can't have a ship that shall run on the fuel in question. So I would think finance is a hurdle, and I do believe that the big hurdle is the equity finance. I think people like Solveig, which are linked to governments, even bankers would also which have the mortgage in the ships may be willing to take the risks, but I think the big challenge for the industry is to find equity investors that see the environmental shipping as a business opportunity.
Oh, I support that.
Because
It's difficult for small companies to run in front of technology development, but no shipping company today can look away from this ongoing transition. An example is the change from gas oil to batteries on offshore support vessels. Like in Norway, these investments are also supported by the government grants from Enova. But the vessels are also more attractive for the charters. In fact, the oil companies make batteries a condition for chartering these vessels.
Any thoughts, Nicolas, on that? Or?
Yeah, no, just I'm fully agree what my colleague said, and it's a nightmare. Also, I mean, each time you have a new technology, it seems one way, it seems really good, and suddenly, if you look until the beginning, yeah, there is some trouble. I mean, we talk at the beginning of the scrubber, for example. And there is lots of question of the scrubber, what you do with remains on the scrubber and so on. Is it a good solution? Is it a bad solution? It's a choice, and that's why I think really strongly that the change, and especially in our industry, because I think that industry is not so easy, but in the cruise industry, easy to change our practice, and that will be. That will have a very big impact if we change our practice.
Thank you. Then there's a question from one of the people listening in here. To which extent does financial institution help and maybe coach companies on how to accelerate the green transition? Maybe for you, Solveig. Do you require specific transition points to take part, to be in the party?
Well, to some extent, yes. We focus on sustainability. All projects that is financed by us need to meet certain targets. However, it is difficult for us to set our own standards. When we do financing, we do it together with the commercial banks with whom we share the risk. Green financing offer financial benefits, and it's interesting to see the appetite for green loan facilities. And as for GIEK, we can follow the terms offered by the commercial banks and, for instance, reduce pricing subject to the client meeting certain agreed targets. So we do our best to push, to do nudging, to support green transition, but it's our risk appetite is not really available for large increase because we have this. There is a clear requirement of only accepting the same level of risk as the general financing market do. There are other parts of the from Norway, from government support, which is provided as form of not subsidies, but just say cash support that comes from other parts of the government system, like Innovation Norge and Enova, who have more directly and specified the support systems.
Thank you. I can also add there as representing the asset management industry, so the bond investors, that it is, I would say, normal today for a savvy, sustainable investor to have clear engagement with companies. So when we do invest, whether it's in equities or in bonds, we do have dialogue. This is increasing now in the investor community really fast. To ensure that our investments are sustainable. We want companies with sustainable business model that still hang around in 20 years' time, right? So So in that sense, we have discussions with companies and discuss these matters. And some companies are very advanced and some are less advanced. And of course, the biggest impact we can do as investors is then to work a lot with those who are the least advanced. And this is often about the voluntary part, as we discussed earlier, not only about the regulatory part. I'm looking here for questions. So another question here. Do all marine companies today focus on green transition? Or is there some resistance out there, like those doing the absolute minimum? And do you see a difference here in different segments? And do you think cheaper financing can change this? So some of you will have to comment without mentioning names, competitors, and maybe you, Solveig, have a broader view on this.
Well, as I said, I think it's difficult for small companies to run in front of technology development. So the large ship owners will have to carry most of the technological risk in pursuing these targets, and of course then the smaller followers will benefit from their findings. Today it's quite bold, as Engebret mentioned, really to guess what will be the future winner of fuel. It's risky to select one now, and I think it's a very good advice to keep your flexibility at the highest level.
Engebret, any thoughts?
I think, it's quite important to stress that there's a lot of things we may do already. Which has been mentioned before, is that there's a lot to do on energy efficiency and operational efficiency, which we in our company is doing a lot to improve. And there's quite a substantial effect that can give when it comes to whether it's 10%, 15% reduction in CO2 emissions. And then, of course, there are possibilities to start burning low carbon fuel like biofuel, which may be more available later on. And then eventually the target is the zero emission solutions, which, it's difficult to make a full-blown decision today. But I think in shipping traditionally, internationally, and maybe not that much for Norwegian shipping, is that ship owners postpone, the complying with regulations to the last minute, trying to minimize what they do in order to comply or to find loopholes in order to do the absolute minimum. So I think in our mind, this is not sufficient. The shipping industry really has to take this serious, and I think the easier it is for shipping companies which have relations to the end users. It could be cruise companies having the customers on board, or like us who have direct relations and serving big industrial companies like Hydro, Alcoa, big oil companies. If they set the target, we have to be in front and we have to deliver the reduction in emissions. Other players, which are more assets that go in and out of the market and do not have a long-term view, I think would have much more problems to invest. So I think that's, I guess, the challenge for at least for the commodity business, the tankers and dry bulk and maybe even container ships.
Thank you. Nicolas, how is it in the cruise industry? All are good?
No, but that's very interesting, because I fully agree. It's more for the small company. It's much more difficult for the small company because it's lots of invest. And the problem for me, it's not a question, as I said at the beginning, all the cruise industry, they have to. It's you got your passenger here who will ask you to change. And I just want to give you, without any names, just an example. You know that all the passenger, we give to the passenger, all the company give bottles. You come in your cabin and you got water in the bottle. And of course, the the passenger, they complain. They say, "What, you bring people to foreign place and amazing landscape and so on, and you put us plastic bottle." And I visited proud to say to me, "Now we change. No more a plastic bottle. We have this what the name in English? The bottle. You say that tank or no? Oh, sorry. Yeah, you understand what I mean. This plastic stuff and not plastic, aluminium stuff and to put the water." And I said, "Oh, okay, it's good and it's very nice. It's good for the sustainability." And I said, "But where? I don't understand, because in your ship there is no fountain to fill up this bottle." And they say, no, but this is the cabin steward. They put they use the bottle, plastic bottle, and they put the water in this bottle." So I say, okay, so it's not so sustainable. And what do you do? The passenger, they go away with their bottles, and they say to me, "Oh yes, all 30% of them take the bottles home." I say, "But what you do with the 70 others?" And they say, "Oh, we give them to the crew." I say, "But yeah, but the crew will have thousands of bottles in their cabin. It's what they do." And I say, "Is it recycled? Can you recycle this bottle?" No. So I think that the people sometimes they go too fast, and they want to do like they have seen in the newspaper, or to obey to what the clients ask for, and it's not so good. Yeah, we need to be careful and carefully check all the possibility.
Thank you. We have another question here from one of the participants. Are there international collaboration between large international financial institutions on new standards for green finance? I mean, you, Ingebret, you mentioned you had a larger interest in bond or bank financing when you had a greener profile, and I think you also mentioned Solveig something about cooperation with the commercial banks, the way you work. How do you look at this point?
I think just comment on when it comes to the uncertainty and the rules for what is going to be what do you call the qualifications for having a green finance. I think we all have expectations to this EU taxonomy, which hopefully will clarify a number of the rules, and I think that different opinions in different part of the finance community what is actually green, as I mentioned.
I can add to that of course there are it's a lot of financial innovation in terms of finding ways to make use of the interest from investors over to a sustainable financing model. And we in GIEC we are concerned about having a critical view on, say, greenwashing. So it's not everything that can work well despite having a green label on it. So we try to be realistic and not to expect too much. And we are, I must say, it's very encouraging and good to see in this the way the environment for financing has changed. And so the large commercial investors, fund manager, banks, bonds are really in the forefront in requiring more aggressive sustainability models before they provide the financing the shipping companies like to see.
I have another one here. will the green transition of the maritime sector only be on operations, or will it also concern what the shippers are transporting and where they travel? We know they use oil and gas for still quite a foreseeable future. Do you think that oil and gas shippers will suffer from this despite going green in the operations, or when they run the ships? And what about cruise business? I mean, in terms of impact on local communities. Anyone?
Well, under the present extraordinary conditions, I would say, with the COVID and this situation, I think the visibility on future demand for shipping is low. And it's likewise difficult to predict the future for cruise, which is now in a state where we have never seen it before. However, we have confidence to the cruise industry, and we believe that protection of environment and local communities is in the high regard by the operators, and it will remain so. And I'm sure that that part of the side of the business will be developed further when the business returns to normal.
Nicola, any thoughts?
Yeah. I just want to emphasize what you say. I mean, this is since the beginning. I mean, when we do a cruise, I mean, it's not like you say, okay, I will start from Kangerlussuaq in Greenland and I will go to Reykjavik or to Tromsø, for example. It's not like this. I mean, we take the local community. We construct much more with the small community. We construct something all together, and so we take care a lot of the local community. And for example, with the crisis now, we can sell everything in all the small community, because if you bring any case like this, it will be a nightmare. And even that, for example, I take just a small example of Aldabra. I don't know if you know where it is, but it's a small archipelago in Seychelles, very protected place. And in this place, I mean, we don't know if the COVID will transmit to the birds. I mean, there is no proof, there is no science on that. There is very few articles on that. There is a key of transmission with the apes, but we don't know with the birds. And you are so close from wildlife on this place that we decide to cancel all our stop on this place and to avoid to do cruises, even if we are able to. I mean, we got the authorization and so. But we are so close to the wildlife that if we are not sure 100% that there is no risk, we prefer to cancel. So it's a real, it's something so important for us.
What do you think, Engebret?
I think it's a risk that finance for the type of shipping that is focusing only on typically transportation of fossil fuel will be more difficult going forward. We see it when we meet investors that are if that's linked to fossil fuels, they will not find. So that will probably be more and more focused on. So that's why I think you will see ship owners will also try to develop new trades that will be less linked to fossil fuels and which have a lower climate risk exposure. So yes, I think it will impact at least the cost of finance to these type of shipping.
All right, thank you. I see that time is running away. So maybe just before we round off here to all of you, what do you think in your organization will be the next step you will do to push the green transition forward? The next step, not the ongoing. I'll give you 5 seconds to think.
Thank you. If I can just jump in, and
Yeah.
I would say to improve and to develop further the model in which where we use the sustainability goals by the UN in a sort of analytical approach, adding pluses and minuses together. And we have presented that model to other ECAs in Europe with whom we cooperate well. And we see, and also to the commercial banks, and there is certainly an interest to adapt an analytical model which can be hopefully also survive over time, so it can be developed and used in the future. So, and other than that, it will be also to look for new ways of supporting the Norwegian export industries in a manner that is good for the global community.
Thank you. Thank you, Brett.
I think we, as I mentioned, we have a number of ongoing projects which are spanning from very many areas for us to reach the quite ambitious targets to decarbonize our business. But I think a big new initiative will be, when we are looking into which type of ship will we build next. Back again to what I said, how can we build the sufficient, how can we reach would call that a big step when it comes to reducing emissions, at the same time as we build in the flexibility over the next years, in addition to all the other things we.
Thank you, Engelbert. Nicolas. Oh, sorry. I have some freezers. I'm not sure if I cut you off. Did you finish?
Yes, I'm finished.
Okay, thank you. Nicolas, any new initiatives that you haven't started yet on your side? I think we have some connection problems. I'm not even sure if you can hear me. Can you hear me? Can anybody hear me?
Yes.
I can hear you.
Yes.
Okay, we're back. Nicolas, I'm not sure if you said anything meanwhile I was cut off here.
Sorry.
Yeah, I think that we have some problems. So I think that we will, with these comments, round off. It's about time. So it's been a very interesting day, focusing on solutions in the maritime sector.
No, I don't. Yeah.
Are you back? Yeah, okay. So sorry. Any final thoughts on your side?
The decarbonization of the ship is the next idea. I mean, the next level will be to be able to build a ship with zero carbon. Yeah. Oh, sorry. Yeah, I hear you. I don't know.
Go ahead, Nicolas.
No, I can hear you.
I think we have some extreme delays here, but
Sorry.
go ahead, Nicolas. Okay, I think we have some technical problems, so we'll just round off today. It's been a very interesting day, taking us through some solutions in the maritime sector to problems that we have for the humanity. So it's not small questions that we are dealing with here. A lot of things are going on in innovation and new technology. And we have also here at the end of the day discussed the financing of this. On behalf of the French-Norwegian Chambers of Commerce, I thank all the participating speakers and also participants of the panel discussions for their interesting contributions, and also to all the participants listening in.